Welcome back, everyone. I'm so excited to present to you Rosie Rees today. Rosie is a sex and relationship coach. She's the founder of a crystal sex toy company called Yoni Pleasure Palace, and she's the creator of a well-known 3-hour women's nude yoga workshop called Naked Awakening. And I love Rosie because she stands for everything nudity, sensual eating, and just having a strong and healthy pelvic floor. Her mission is to make every woman feel sexually empowered and confident in their body. So join us today as we talk about the embodiment of our sensuality. Rosie, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited about our conversation today, particularly because I feel like we have so much alignment in our work, and you're just an incredible woman. You're you're paving the way in so many ways for so many women. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and I'm just so excited to dive deeper into today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Of course. No, thank you for making the time. It's truly an honor. So let's dive right in. Today we'll be talking about embodiment of our sensuality. So I love the work that you're doing with hashtag sensual eating. And I want to start, and I want to start with this because I want to understand like what was behind this. And because I remember my first time I was at a tantra course and our teacher made us get turned on by a crazen. And so when I saw this, I was like, this is incredible. So I'd love to know more about it. What was going on?
You know, I feel like I bring normality to things that have been typically thought of or considered quite taboo. So for me, like whatever it is I'm doing, I just want it to be more normalized and embraced as a society. And so I just remember it was a really hot summer's day here in Perth where I live, and I had a really juicy mango. And I was eating it, and I was eating it so like seductively and delectably, and it was just delicious. And I thought, maybe I should post this on Instagram. I don't really care what people think of me. Like, this is really juicy, and I want more people to feel this way, because if I'm feeling this joy and this sensuality, maybe I can inspire other people. And so I literally just put the video up on my Instagram story and put the hashtag sensual eating. And I can, like, that was almost 3 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
I cannot believe, well, I can believe so many women to use the hashtag now. And it's like a thing. It's just like a domino effect. Women started, I think what happened was they saw me doing it, and it's like a big permission slip. When anyone does anything, you know, it just gives people permission, like, oh, okay, if she's doing it, and you know, not getting judged. I mean, I'm sure people judge me, and I actually get a lot of people tell me how uncomfortable it makes them feel seeing me sensually eat. But then literally they'll come back a few months later saying, well, Rosie, I actually tried that sensual eating thing, and
it was awesome.
It's amazing.
Actually, yeah, it's true. And you're such a, like I mentioned, like I mean it literally, you really have paved the way for so many things that are taboo and that are just like even hard to communicate in words. So this is awesome. Where did you even first, is it just how you eat regularly? And I'm just curious.
Yeah, I make a lot of sound effects, and like my partner often will just like laugh because I make a lot of sound, and I'm like, when something feels good, I'm just very expressive. I have always been that way.
Okay, beautiful. So ladies listening, or anyone listening for that matter, please enjoy your food with a little more sense. That's beautiful. So Simon Sinek always says, start with the why. And I just want to understand, what is your why? What drives you to do this sort of work?
I am driven by inspiring and moving, and, you know, other people. Like I love seeing people have a transformation. So like, you know, whether that's in my nude yoga, or someone using a yoni egg for the first time, or essentially eating their banana, whatever it is, like I love seeing people go from feeling and maybe like having one point of view or one belief system and changing and being able to see a whole new perspective. So I think seeing the transformation and seeing people live more freely and more sensually and even feeling more sexually empowered, I just love seeing that. I feel like we haven't been educated enough about this stuff, and we haven't had positive role models of sensually empowered women growing up. And, you know, if I really became the person that I needed to have so badly, like even as in my early 20s, when I was going through awful toxic relationships, looking back now, I really needed a relationship coach, you know, so I became a relationship coach. And then, you know, I had body image issues, and so I created Nude yoga to help other people, because I helped myself, you know, overcome body image issues. And then the Yoni Egg, a similar experience, like just going through something that really moved me. And I just feel like it's almost selfish to keep it just for myself. I really want other people to know how they can do that too.
And when you say this work, where did it all start? Like, where was your first, where was your first step, I guess, on this road? Where your work started with the Yoni Egg? Is that how it kind of evolved?
Well, it actually, I mean, it really stemmed from, I've always been a very spiritual person and a very, very comfortable with sexuality from a young age. So it really started for me, my activation, or my kind of awakening, was getting out of or escaping a really abusive, traumatic relationship that I was in. I was only in it for a year, but he was awfully controlling and verbally abusive and manipulative. And I realized how stuck I was, and I realized how I'd actually attracted this in, because I was in such a desperate low state in my life and such low self-worth. And it was like this full, you know, attracting in my mirror basically. But after, you know, 6 to 12 months, I realized how toxic it was. And when I ended it, and it was a very big ordeal, because he was actually my boss in my workplace, I had this awakening experience where, like, literally there was about 3 months where I don't really remember anything. Like, I was just in such a bliss state because I felt so free. And I'd escaped, and I'd got out of this situation, and I started blogging. I started a new website. I went to India. I quit my corporate job. I was climbing the corporate ladder in Sydney, and, you know, in a corporate job, and just was working so hard and under so much pressure. And I literally just quit my job, went to India, became a yoga teacher. And that's when it really started. And then it was like a Yoni Egg workshop a few years later that I had a sexual awakening. But yeah, it really starts from that, I guess, that negative relationship that I had.
Wow.
And I just wanted to help other women get out of this situation of being in an unhealthy relationship.
Wow, it's powerful how that instigated everything. I had like, wow, that's what do you find actually as we speak, as you're teaching, because you've been teaching now for how long would you say?
I've been teaching yoga since 2013, and
oh wow, okay.
I've been a coach since 2012. Yeah.
So as on your journey as to teaching and like really helping and opening the door for so many other people, what would you say is like the biggest inhibitors, like the reasons they won't, or they feel resistance to opening up? Is it fear, you'd say?
Opening up to other people, or in the session,
to themselves, or like to further, like to really getting to know themselves, both their body, like sensually, and as like their expression in the world and what they'd like to do. Because you said you quit your job as a result as well, because you realized that wasn't really for you.
Yeah. Well, you know what? There's so many factors and blocks, and a lot of them start from childhood, like from your upbringing, from what your parents have educated you around, your school, religious dogma, just, you know, cultural things. Like, there's so many different things that can really prevent us, or, you know, stop us from actually doing what we want to do. And if I look back now, I remember being like 7 or maybe it was 8 or 9 years old and reading a column in the Women's Day magazine here in Australia. And I remember it was by a woman called Dr. Rosie King, who's a sex therapist. And my full name is Rosie King. Rosie Rees. Rees is my middle name. And I remember saying to my mom, like, I want to be a sex therapist when I grow up. And I meant it, but I had so much religious shame and Catholic guilt that came with all of that. And so it wasn't until I cleared that did I actually become not a sexuality therapist, but a sex coach. And, you know, a sexuality online shop entrepreneur. Like the clues are back when you're a little girl. Often you kind of have these secret dreams and desires, but often we don't let it come true because of what we think people will think of us.
So true. I can totally relate to that. So then help us understand, like, who were you before you started this kind of work? And like, how has that connection to yourself, and I don't even want to go into detail, but like your sex life, your connection to other people, your work, like how has that evolved with time as you've worked on yourself in this aspect? Like, who were you before versus, yeah.
Rosie before was a party animal, binge drinker, cigarette smoker. I used to date men. Now I am with a woman. I used to use vibrators. Now I use crystal and glass wands and Yoni eggs. So I was a very different person. I was climbing the corporate ladder. Now I'm working for myself. Like there's no right or wrong or good or bad. It's just this natural evolution of my life. And, you know, I think that it's good to kind of, I've always been hungry for spiritual growth. I've always read books about self-help. And I remember my father giving me one when I was about 14. And I always knew that I was destined to do great things and help people. Like that's all I wanted to do, is help people. And now I'm sort of in the position where I'm running, you know, 7-figure businesses and I'm successful at doing what I love. And it's just, I couldn't imagine living any other way now. I'm so grateful that I listened to my intuition that was telling me and guiding me and whispering in my ear, like, keep going, you've got this. It's scary, like, because I was challenging so many conditioning and taboos in society, but I knew, like, keep going, because you're going to help more people. And you've got to put yourself out there. If you really want to make changes in the world, you've got to be willing to risk. You know, I lost relationships with family members. I lost, you know, friendships. I'm sure I lost lots of followers because of the stuff I was doing. But you've kind of got to just follow your heart at the end of the day.
Wow, that's powerful what you've just said there, because it's so true that living out our truth is like, I guess, the most important above everything. But how, you know, it's sometimes as you blossom into a new role, there's a lot of new blocks that come up. So what was your guiding light? Was there a belief or a message that you would say to yourself that would help you kind of persevere, continue, or through really tough times?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just have this, like, I back myself and I believe in myself. Don't get me wrong, I still have self-doubt from time to time, but I always knew that I have everything I need within me now. And it's little mantras like that I kind of taken from Tony Robbins seminars, like Unleash the Power Within. I don't know if you've ever been to that, but if anyone's listening, go to a seminar with Tony Robbins before he's no longer on this earth plane, because it is just a phenomenal transformation you can have. And he gives us lots of mantras. It's kind of a bit NLP like, but you know, I have everything within me now, or like just I believe in myself. I've got what it takes. And just remembering these things, because it's important that you speak even if your voice shakes. It's important that you lead the way, even if you don't really know where you're going. All you need is to be one step ahead of somebody else, and you're guiding. Like, you don't have to be light years ahead of people to be a guide, to be a mentor, to be a coach. I think a lot of people hang back and like, oh no, I'm not credible enough, I'm not certified enough. It's like, we all have our own natural abilities to help other people, and you only need to be a few steps ahead in your own personal evolution and growth to be able to guide the people who maybe haven't got to where you are right now. You'll always attract the right people in who need that growth.
Oh, it's so beautiful what you said. And I love that even the strength throughout your whole story has been, it would be selfish, or I want to share it with somebody else. Forget selfish, but just, I really want to share it with other people. I don't want to just keep it to myself. So I think that's so beautiful and such a force to keep us guided. So I would like to talk a little bit about the Nude yoga workshops that you do. I've never seen anything like that. And I'm so curious to understand like how this all came up. I think it's incredibly exciting, and it obviously touches on a lot of sensitive topics and for a lot of women. So tell us how you've navigated that, how that came about. And
Yeah. Well, my dad used to live in Tokyo in Japan, and I'd go over there when I was a teenager, and we'd go to onsen. So we'd go snowboarding for the day and then come back and go into a Japanese hot spring, which is also called an onsen. And the tradition in Japan is you have to be naked. You can't be wearing anything. And at first I felt it a little confronting and a little bit like, oh, this is weird. But then it just became the new normal. And like you just started getting comfortable with being naked. And then so when I became a yoga teacher, I loved teaching yoga. Like it was a beautiful experience for me. But it wasn't until I started teaching naked yoga that I was like, this is why I'm a yoga teacher. Like I only teach one class a month, and it's a workshop. It's a nude yoga workshop. I don't teach regular classes anymore. I don't teach clothed yoga. Once you start doing,
once you go nude, you don't go back.
That's right. You don't. And nor should you. Like it's so liberating and freeing. But basically what happened is I moved over to Perth because I got into a master's in sexology here in Perth in WA. And I moved into this new house, and I'd actually fully manifested it. I said, God, goddesses, angels, I want to live in a beach shack right on the ocean with someone open-minded, and I just want a space where I can coach people. And literally that's the exact thing that I manifested into my life. And I happened to be living with a nudist at the time in the beach shack. And I remember him saying to me, Rosie, when you're here alone, why don't you just start to get a bit comfortable with walking around the house naked, or like just, it's such a liberating thing to experience. And so I did. When he'd leave the house, I just started to be naked more often and do my yoga practice naked. And at first it was actually very confronting, and I looked at my body and I didn't like what I saw. I was really harsh on myself. I was very critical and judgmental, and I didn't like the shape of my breasts, and I didn't like the color of my nipples, and the way my belly had 3 rolls of fat on my tummy, and you name it, like there was everything coming up to the surface.
Of course.
But then it was really interesting. I was sitting in a meditation naked in my backyard, and I just remember having this really clear, crystal clear message saying, you need to teach this for women in a group environment. And it was so loud and clear that I had to just follow that. And I did. And then I started launching workshops, and they all sold out. And, there was definitely a fear of like, what are people going to think of me? Are people going to turn up?
Yes.
But it was never enough to make me not want to do it. And so now it's been 7 years that I've been teaching. I finally did my first facilitated training, and I've called it Naked Awakening because I kept getting anything with nude yoga in front of the name on Instagram was just getting reported and banned and taken down. So Naked Awakening is kind of what I call the experience, because that's what it is. It's not just come and do downward dog and get naked and do yoga. It's an awakening 3-hour workshop where you peeling back the layers, and you're metaphorically, literally, like symbolically taking off all these old beliefs and fears and blocks and anything that's like inhibiting you. And it's just the most phenomenal experience.
So that's fascinating, because when I actually thought about this, I thought the first class maybe wouldn't have sold out, only because it's like the first time. And, knowing women, sometimes we can have so many inhibitions as to like you mentioned. So did it, like you had a flock of people? So was there a real need for this, is what it sounds like you really hit it where it was like a pain point for a lot of people?
Yeah. Well, we had a waiting list for the first 3 workshops that we launched. There was a waiting list of people. And so it made me think, okay, women are obviously ready for this. And because it's women only, I think that really helps as well. Like I never felt drawn to doing co-ed mixed yoga. It just didn't feel right for me. I needed to feel completely and 100% safe in the environment to really let go. So that was just, you can only really teach what you know and what you're comfortable with. So that's where I'm at. And yeah, this is why I want to train more women all around the world, because there needs to be this available for people. And particularly the way I teach it is a really beautiful unveiling process. So yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm actually really happy also when I saw that you did the teacher training, because I thought, you know, it is such a beautiful way to spread such a beautiful message. And like you said, the naked awakening, it's such a powerful way to phrase it. So well done. It's so nice. So for a woman that's like on the edge about joining, what would you typically say to her? When she thinks about it and she's like, no, definitely not, but there's something, an inkling inside. Is there something that typically helps open them up?
Well, I tell them that it's candlelit, so that helps sometimes. It's very dim lit. It's at nighttime, and you get naked when you're ready. There's no rush to, you know, get naked when I tell you to get naked. And it's also like, you know, it's what's so I don't understand what's so scary about being naked. It's our most natural form. I think what comes up for women is they feel they're going to be judged, and not just judged by other people, but judging themselves. Like they're looking at another body and then looking at theirs and going, well, I don't look like that. But what happens is you're sitting in this circle. So I always teach in a circle rather than rows and having bums and faces and that kind of thing. And you look around and you're like, we're all so different, but we are so, like, you just see beauty. You just see the female form in just all her glory, and all shapes and colors and sizes and ages and backgrounds. And you're like, well, if I can see that beauty in another woman in front of me who's covered in stretch marks or covered in scars or whatever, and, you know, you can start to see the beauty in yourself. Like, we all have self-perceived, you know, imperfections and flaws, but then when you start to see them in other women, you're like, well, I think that's really beautiful in her, and you're not judging her, so why do you judge yourself? Like, there's this really beautiful synergy that happens in these spaces that you just don't get in a clothed yoga workshop, you know?
Wow. Yeah, and it's interesting. I really wanted to ask you about that, because there must be something incredibly healing and opening about seeing, like you said, the female form in all its beauty and rawness and all its expressions. So that must be incredible just to even experience, like, forget the content, but just that space.
You just see all these silhouettes around the room, and you see boobs hanging, you know, when we're doing a side plank or something, and you see rolls and you see all the things, and you're like, well, because we don't often see that on social media. We see these perfectly toned, tanned, big boobed women who have thigh gaps. And, you know, I'm not saying that's wrong, but it definitely doesn't do us any favors if we have body image issues or we think we need to look a certain way. But when you start to just see regular, normal women who've had babies and, you know, you start to just be like, okay, you know, let's stop being so hard on ourselves all the time. And can I just say, even those women who have a thigh gap and big boobs and tan skin or whatever, if they come to my workshop, they are often the most insecure of them all. Yeah. So just because you might be stereotypically, you know, beautiful according to the beauty standards in the world, doesn't mean you are immune to, like, believing you're ugly or you know, having these really low body image perceptions. You know, it doesn't dodge anyone. Everyone is, you know, gets these feelings and these thoughts about their body no matter what they look like. So it's even though you're all getting naked, it's actually this really beautiful internal shift that you have.
Oof, I love that. I'm so excited. I would love to be at one of your workshops. So I will definitely be there. So you mentioned something really interesting on your website, which I absolutely loved, which is that it's a celebration of our sensual female form and is journeying beautifully through breath, sound, and movement. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean with this?
Yeah, I mean, when I did my Tantra teachings, my Tantra kind of education a few years ago, one of the biggest takeaways that I learnt was basically how, like, emotions are energy in motion. And as we become adults and, you know, obviously not a child anymore, we are often like, we feel like we can't express the way we feel. We can't have a tantrum. We can't stomp our feet. We can't yell and scream and have a, you know, an expression of emotion. However, like, if we don't express how we're really feeling through breath, sound, movement, and touch, you know, it stays stored and stuck in the body, and it often comes out in pain and numbness and dis-ease and cancer, dare I say, because we've pushed it and suppressed it and squished it down. But actually, like, letting our bodies, and if you do come to a nude yoga workshop, it is just an expression of release and like so many sound. I invite and I give all the women permission to make any sound, crying, moaning, groaning, screaming, like whatever they want, like anything goes, because it creates lightness in the body. It creates like flow of energy. And especially when we really release rage and anger, often women, you know, we've got this good little girl complex, and we feel like we can't have that expression. And when you're given permission to actually express that, it just clears you out and you feel like a new human. And it's important that as adults, we still give ourselves, you know, especially our inner child, time to express and release, especially rage, anger, and sadness.
Wow. I love what you said about
and pleasure.
Yeah, of course. What you said about any kind of noise, because I find that we typically stay within the confines of certain noises that we're comfortable making because we think they're right or they sound right. So how would you guide how would you guide someone through that?
Yeah, I mean, I do this in my one-on-one sessions, and I do this in the yoga classes as well. So it's really just getting them, finding out where they're comfortable with. Like, I don't want to push people too far. It's finding that edge, finding that limit, and then just dancing there on the edge for a while. You don't ever want to push someone over the edge, but you know, just starting to make sounds, like even in sex, let's say, because that's, you know, often we make sounds in sex. We'll often only make the sounds that we think are like appropriate or like a little bit porn-like, you know, oh, you know, what we think a sufficient moan sounds like. And it's like, actually, like, let yourself make any fucking sound that's authentic to you. When I'm in pleasure, sometimes I'm in some pain as well, as in emotional pain, and I will release that sound, whatever it sounds like. Even if I sound like an animal screeching and dying, like, I will make that sound. My partner knows that I have a range of expression, and she holds space for me to express that. And I think it's important in every relationship, especially our intimate relationships, that we are given permission to make whatever sound, or, you know, release emotion. I cry a lot sometimes in orgasms or during sex. I laugh sometimes. Like, it all goes. It's there's no good or bad.
It's true.
But sex is a good place to start.
Yes. Wow, that's incredible. I'm so excited about that, because it's true. Like, even volume, like, never mind the kind of noise, it's also the volume, and there's just so many things that we consider when we're expressing, which is also, you mentioned that also breath is really important, and I just wanted to touch quickly on that as to why it's so important to bring breath into a lot of this experience.
Yeah, I mean, breathing has always been the key for me, and I feel for everyone. It's something that's completely free. It's something that we all do when we're alive, and it's actually the key to feeling peace and really calm. And a lot of us feel stressed and anxious, and so if you do feel stressed and anxious, breath is the way to really lower your nervous system. You know, that if you're feeling really highly strung, using the breath, big belly breaths, to regulate your nervous system again and get you out of fight or flight or freeze, and bring you back into your body, because often we kind of leave our body in these situations. So using breath throughout the day, just if you're kind of scrolling on your phone, or you're just doing something quite mindlessly, one way to bring awareness to yourself is just taking a deep breath. Or if you've got a headache, take 10 deep belly breaths and have a glass of water. It's amazing what can happen. Or make some sound, like even just walking around the house or in the car, start to, on the exhale, make a sigh out of your mouth and just start to get comfortable, at least in your own time and space and energy, making sounds, whether they're, you know, pleasurable sounds or not pleasurable sounds. Because the more comfortable you are with it, the more you will sort of express that with a partner.
Yeah, it's so true. It's funny how the limits also stretch as to what we allow sometimes, well before with our partners. So it's about getting comfortable in ourselves as well. So with that, talk to us about embodying our sensuality. So we talked a little bit about it with sensual eating. So in the form of, but how can we make this an everyday practice? Like, how can we show up for ourselves and be more sensual in our day-to-day lives?
Eating is one perfect example. So just think about all the mundane things that you do throughout the day. You can make them sensual, whether that's eating, whether that's showering, whether that's driving, you know, preparing your food, doing your washing. It's how you touch things. It's how you let things affect you. Everything, the way you dress, you can change, you know, you can create sensuality in that practice, like textures that make you feel good. Surrounding yourself with sensual items. Like I love a lot of velvet and a lot of like really beautiful, soft, beautiful textures, like this couch behind me, this beautiful gold velvet. So it's just surrounding yourself with like things that make you feel good. But also practicing, you know, through your 5 senses, your touch, your smell, taste, you know, everything can be a sensual experience if you allow it to be.
And actually, one of the things that I think you said that was so interesting is when I was looking into your work with sensual eating, was that you invited women to like lick and like suck and like play with our tongue and saliva and all these different ways that we actually numb, back to the idea of the good girl. So could you touch a little bit about that? I'd just like everyone to hear a little bit your opinion on like really helping that be, and of course, like you said, without pushing too far, but I'd love to get your opinion on that.
On the good girl?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've all been sort of we've all had experiences of family members or school or whatever to kind of teach you to be a good little girl. You know, if you're a good girl, you'll get a lollipop or whatever it is, you know. So we're taught to be this good little girl from a young age, to make our parents happy, to get rewarded. And again, you know, we're always seeking pleasure and trying to avoid pain. So of course we'll be this good little girl. And then, you know, so we're taught this to, you know, up until maybe 17, 18 till we leave home. And then it's really interesting. We go from being, you know, getting rewarded for being this good little girl, and then bang, you're out in the world. And all of a sudden it's like, now you're expected to be a multi-orgasmic, like woman who can have orgasms, can, you know, be sexy and sleep with people and really like, you know, just be a sensual person. But we've had no education on actually how to be multi-orgasmic, how to be pleasure ourselves, how to have a clitoral orgasm, internal orgasm. And it's like this is most of the coaching sessions that I do with women are women who have been told or taught by their, you know, strict Catholic, usually, family members to be a good little girl, and then now they're married or engaged or whatever and ready to have babies, but they literally can't have an orgasm with their partner because they've been conditioned, don't touch your vagina, don't touch your vulva, you know, masturbation's dirty, sex is bad, bad until you're with someone and you get married and then it's good. And it's like, no, we can't have that discrepancy. That's just such a radical, you know, 360 of an opinion on something that, or a perception of something that it's just a bit of a head fuck, if I can say that word in this podcast.
Of course.
So a lot of the work that I do is helping women actually start to rewire and reframe sex as a good thing and something to be embraced and to touch themselves and to actually be okay with pleasure.
A lot of healing there for a lot of women. So thanks for touching on that. And actually it's part of like, you're one of the few I've ever seen mention our inner eroticism and like really women, you talk about women wanting to desire and embody more of that seductive quality. And this touches on what we were just saying. So can you share with us more on like how we can make that safer? Because I know that there's a lot, or maybe you can give us a different perspective rather, but there's a lot of this like perception of like, oh, if she seduces or like, women to be dangerous in that way, that seduction. And so I'd like to just I'd like to get your opinion on how that is, how we can make that a sacred experience for ourselves and how we can express that more in our daily lives without it necessarily with it feeling safe.
I mean, I feel like there's kind of healthy seduction and unhealthy seduction.
Yes.
I definitely have been on both sides of the coin. I used to be quite the seductress, and in not in a healthy way, like definitely seducing married men when I was much younger, like, early 20s, not really realizing my sexual power and my sexual prowess to seduce someone. And, I think that we can use it for bad, but it's important that, like, now I'm like that, and I can't even believe I did things like that, looking back, but that was the version of me that I was back then. And now I feel like seducing ourselves is really the key. Not needing to get that validation or that attention or that, that fix from someone else. It's like learning to really desire ourselves, learning to seduce ourselves, because whatever we cultivate here with our own relationship to self will be reflected outwardly. And, you want to be able to experience this beautiful seduction with a partner, potentially down the track, but just to have that beautiful relationship with yourself is really paramount.
Yes. Wow, it's beautiful. And why eroticism? Like, what's the word?
I mean, that stems from the word eros, which really means like pulse of energy or pulse of aliveness. And, we all have eros in our body. It's the, that pulse of aliveness that is through each and every one of us. It's our sexual life force energy. And, bringing that erotic energy into your daily life it's a beautiful way of living. It's like, how can you touch yourself different? How can you be erotic with yourself, dancing in front of the mirror or using your Yoni Egg or self-pleasuring yourself? It's like running that erotic energy, that sexual life force energy actually makes you more radiant. It makes you more magnetic. It makes you glow. You see these women who maybe haven't had an orgasm in 20 years, and you can tell a woman who's replenished by her orgasmic energy, and you can tell women who maybe aren't tapped into that sexual power, because it has a physiological change in what you look like and how you hold yourself and how you move through your day.
I love that. Wow. Sounds juicy. Just gets me juicy just listening to it. So tell me, you mentioned something actually there, and I just want to clarify this for everybody. What do you mean by sexual life force energy?
So sexual energy is obviously located in your genitals, generally. Sensual energy, I feel, is located in your whole body. And then life force energy is your, otherwise known as Kundalini energy or Shakti energy or Eros and erotic energy, is basically creative energy. So creative energy, if you think about, two people having sex, creates a baby. The sexual energy literally creates life. So it's like remembering that we have this sexual energy in our body that creates life. Well, we can bring that creative energy to anything in our life, whether it's our workplace or our, creative projects. We ovulate generally. Most people with a vagina ovulate if they're not on birth control or things like that, once a month. And, that's a potentiality of getting pregnant once a month, pregnant with a baby. But if you're not aiming to have a baby, like, how are you using the sexual energy day to day? And when we ovulate, that's a beautiful time in the month that we can conceive new ideas and birth new projects.
Wow. Just syncing up everything, right? With our whole systems. root system. It's beautiful. So what are 3 ways women can start to embody more of themselves in their everyday life? Are there rituals or practices that you encourage women to engage with, like for both noobs
Mm,
or noobs as in
sure.
beginners?
Yeah. Eye gazing with yourself in the mirror is a beautiful tool. So really looking deep into your left eye, the window to the soul. Like breathing deeper, especially during sex, during self-pleasure, like actually breathing and exhaling out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Using your yoni egg is a beautiful way to connect to your yoni and connect to your whole body, and to clear sexual shame. If you're feeling any shame in that space in your body, using the egg to reconnect and plug into that power center in your body. And I think it's just getting in touch with your sensuality. Like if you want to radiate that energy, really think day to day, like what can I wear today that's going to make me feel like a sensual woman? How can I move today that's going to make me feel more seductive?
Yeah.
How can I really seduce myself today? How can I eat this that's going to get more enjoyment and more satisfaction? And just, it's the way you drink a glass of water. Maybe you want to drink it out of a wine glass. Maybe you want to surround yourself with some flowers and go buy some flowers to smell. Think about all the senses. It's not just what you eat or what you wear. It's like, it's a visual thing as well, like being able to see sort of sensual items around the house as well.
It just makes everyday moments a little more delicious. Oh, I love this. Awesome. So what do you love about being a woman or having been born in a like female body?
Everything.
Yeah.
Like literally everything. I even love menstruating. I love bleeding. I love, it's even the perceived sort of inconvenient things about being a woman. I absolutely love all of it. So yeah, I can't, there's not one thing that I could pinpoint.
I love that. So, okay, let's just to wrap this up, because I want to make sure that what people take away, what are some of your rituals that you do for yourself to stay in your own power and to just contain like a healthy sense of self? Like, is there one ritual or a few that you just love doing?
One that I love doing at the moment is Wim Hof breathing. So there's an 11-minute video on YouTube by Wim Hof, and it's like a breathing in and out of the mouth and suspending the breath and breath retention. And I love, love, love that. So cleansing my system every single day with Wim Hof breathing first thing in the morning. I also love meditation. I love Kundalini yoga. I really love drinking medicinal kind of drinks like cacao or, medicinal mushrooms, not the drug mushrooms, but just like reishi mushrooms, and having that kind of tincture in my coffee. Yeah, like just really, little things like that. Drinking lots of water, lowering alcohol intake. Like I'll enjoy a glass of red wine every now and again, but it's really just minimal and moderate. Just enjoying the finer things in life, but bringing moderation and sensuality to that.
Awesome. So is there any content you would recommend for anyone listening? Any content, whether it's a podcast or a certain book? I know you have a wonderful work membership as well, which is a great resource center for anybody listening. But outside of the work that you do, is there any other resources that you'd recommend?
Oof, so many different books that I want to mention, and podcasts. I love the podcast by Kim Anami. I think it's called Orgasmic Enlightenment. I also love the podcast by Mel Wells, Sex, Love, Magic. Yes, these are, right now podcasts are my favorites. So I'm also loving a book by Glennon. Oh, I've forgotten her surname.
Oh, Glennon Doyle?
Called Untamed. Yeah. Love that book. Yeah, there's so many things out there, and I have a lot of resources on my website. It's actually, the page is called Resources, and people can go and check them out. Free resources, some of them are paid online courses as well, but there's lots of free resources as well.
Amazing. Alrighty, so thank you so much, Rosie, for being with us. It was such a pleasure to get to know you so intimately and this closely. So thank you so much. I look forward to it. Is there anything you feel like we missed or you'd like to touch on before we part?
No, I feel like you've asked me the most fabulous questions and you've been an incredible interviewer. So thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Thank you. And that's the end of another incredible episode. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm a huge fan of Rosie's work. So whether it was herself as a person, you can follow her on Instagram, or her membership, her Golden Yoni membership, or the Naked Awakening nude yoga program that she offers, or her sex toys. She's such a trailblazer. Please do, if you feel enticed, follow up on that hunch that you might feel inside and investigate it further, dig deeper, and just get to know yourself and your pleasure. I'm really excited. I will be leaving links down below in case you are interested in following up. Otherwise, please share the love, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.